For people who are like, what are you talking about raw milk? What are the differences between raw and pasteurized and what are the benefits of raw milk? Because I'm sold on the benefits.
Yeah, raw milk's pretty amazing. Like you said, it's so true. Raw milk is just milk. It's milk that hasn't been heated and pasteurized. And I love that you brought up this history. 100 or so years ago, all milk was raw. And what happened is, there was an urbanization, there was an industrialization, or the industrial revolution is in full swing 100 years ago, and people are moving into cities. And the milk that we've had for 100 years on farms that we're used to eating or drinking in the 1800s is now we want that in the city. And so they realize, hey, if we're going to milk cows in a city, we can't do it in the same sanitary conditions. They were milking cows in sub-sanitary conditions. They were feeding the cows swill, which are the spent grains of beer and alcohol production. So they were feeding the cows garbage. They were milking them in substandard conditions, and the milk was problematic. And this is where pasteurization came in and probably saved a lot of lives, because they were basically producing milk in a non-sanitary way. It would be like feeding someone sushi, things we do today, in a sub-sanitary environment. People aren't washing their hands, the fish isn't clean, et cetera, et cetera. Or getting vegetables from a farm and not washing the dirt off. People are going to get sick if you do these things improperly. Any sort of uncooked food can potentially transmit infections to humans. So pasteurization comes in, and it's the heating of the milk. And so people can drink the milk, they just sterilize the milk after it's been milked. But historically, in conditions where you're getting milk from a cow on a farm and you're washing the udders and the cow is eating good food and the cow is healthy, and you can collect the milk into a sterile or a clean vessel and chill it quickly, that's a much different operation than taking milk that's from a cow that's not fed the right foods or that's milked in unsanitary conditions and trying to feed that to humans unpasteurized. So raw milk is essentially milk that has not been heated or sterilized. And though sterilization, the pasteurization of milk, sounds good on the surface, the problem is that it changes the conformation of certain proteins in the milk. And the research looks like it's a whey protein. Some people thought for a while that maybe the sterilization of the milk was killing bacteria, and it does. There are numerous different types of bacteria in a raw milk, just like whether it's a human breast milk or a cow's milk from an udder. There is a normal flora in that milk, and that will affect humans in a positive way. These are beneficial organisms, things that we have been in contact with throughout our history as humans, things that we were in contact with from our mother's breast milk, which is obviously usually not pasteurized unless it's being boiled or given to someone else. So we have the situation where milk is now heated, and it's often heated over 200 degrees or even more for long amounts of time. And it seems to change the conformation of some of the proteins in the milk. And that seems to affect the quality and the way it interacts with our immune system. So there's some interesting studies with raw milk. And when I read these, I thought, wow, this is really a health food that's being underappreciated in our culture. There's one called the Gabriella study. There's another study that's very similar. Both of these studies looked at kids who grow up on or off farms drinking raw milk. So you could say, oh, kids are growing up on farms drinking raw milk. They're getting the benefits of being on the farm. But if they're kids off farms and on farms drinking raw milk, that's an interesting experiment. And what we see is that the kids who do that have lower rates of asthma, eczema, and seasonal allergies and allergies overall, which is fascinating, right? Those are all the things I had growing up. I have this atopic condition. I had allergies. I had eczema. I had asthma. And so there's something probably going on here, and we know this. There's so much research on raw milk now, the way it affects the immune system positively, unique nutrients in there that are potentially degraded when you pasteurize it, and the way that it could be just sort of programming our immune system as we are growing up or even as we are adults. The other thing about raw milk that's fascinating are the organisms and the cultures in the raw milk and how that can affect our gut flora. We don't really know this. Nobody's ever done research on how the human microbiome in the gut changes when we drink raw milk. It certainly does. But a lot of us are lactose intolerant. I don't know if you guys were, but I was growing up.
I wouldn't even drink milk before.
Yeah. I can't drink milk. I can't drink pasteurized milk. But raw milk appears to somehow affect our gut flora. And it doesn't look like it's a lactase enzyme in the milk. It's probably these bacterial cultures, naturally occurring bacterial cultures in the milk that affect our gut microbiota and allow us to digest the lactose in this milk. So now my personal experience is, hey, I was super lactose intolerant, bloating, gas when I would drink any sort of dairy. Now I can drink lots of raw milk every day, no problem. A lot of people have had this experience. So there's something going on with lactose intolerance, and there's probably something going on with the way it affects our immune system and other beneficial things in humans in terms of allergies and atopic conditions. It's a fascinating thing, especially for kids. And then you just talk about all the nutrients in milk that you get if you're not drinking it, versus drinking it, and getting a form of milk that's been from a cow, that's raised on a farm, that's fed better foods. It's all around. This is a potentially very unique food for humans that like you said, is sort of been separated into two different types of food now. There's like a pasteurized milk and there's a real milk, but we're not really allowed to drink that raw milk anymore. It's crazy.
I think that what I've noticed about it is that I was losing 60 pounds. And one thing that I used it for is instead of waking up and having like this big breakfast, I would wake up and I would have coffee, which is like gives me a little buzz with raw milk. And it gave me a little bit of protein, a little bit of sugar, and a little bit of carb. And so I would do a weightlifting workout and it was like the perfect pre-workout. I've noticed that it has helped me shed the weight. Is that crazy?
It's not crazy at all. Do you feel, I think it's all about satiety. Weight loss is about satiety and not being hungry. There's been this notion going around in health circles that like a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. You can lose weight eating whatever you want, which is true. You could lose weight eating donuts. But what is your experience of losing that weight going to be like eating donuts, eating Twinkies in a calorie deficit versus eating whole foods, right? And I think raw, real milk is a great thing to include in that list. I think it's very satiating. All the nutrients in there,
totally.
The fat, the protein, the carbohydrates, an interesting balance in the milk, along with the nutrients in the milk. This is a satiating food that could keep you less hungry for longer. And that's what weight loss is about long term, is just thinking, I'm not hungry, I'm not torturing myself. It's a much better experience for a human long term, and it leads to more sustainable weight loss long term when you eat the nutrient-rich foods.